Hi everyone, welcome to my kitchen. For those of you that are new, my name's Janice and I'm a Thermomix consultant. I've been looking at, I love cob loaf, and I found a recipe and it's a meat pie cob loaf and it sounds delicious. And it's, you make the loaf of bread or you can buy it, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the loaf of bread. Then you cook the mince and put it in, and then you put puff pastry on top and bake it in the oven. So that's what we're having for tea tonight. And I just want to try it. It sounds amazing. I mean, I love cob loaf. I would quite happily eat it for breakfast, morning tea, lunch, afternoon tea, and dinner at night. So, this is going to be great. I love cob loaf. So let's just turn that around. And now what I've done is I found a bread recipe I haven't made before. And I'm going to try and use the sensor, which is the Thermomix sensor to bake the bread. Because I generally don't use it because I use the bread tin with the lid on. But I'm going to do it in a round, like make a round loaf. And then I'm going to use the sensor to cook with it. So I had a bit of a look and I found a bread recipe I haven't made before. I usually just make the basic one with the whole wheats made into, milled into flour. But this one is an easy everyday white bread. And then I've got a cottage pie recipe which I'm going to use for the mince filling. So let's do this. Easy everyday white. And we will start cooking. So it says to grease a loaf tin, 25, and set aside. I'll do that later. So now we're going to start off with water. As I said, I'm really doing this blind because I've never made this before. Oh, sorry, I'll just show you there's nothing in there. Okay, 300 grams of water. And I've just pulled out all my regular bread ingredients. So I don't know if this has got eggs or butter in it. But what I've got is water, flour, yeast, bread improver, salt, and olive oil. So that's our regular bread ingredients. 2 teaspoons of yeast. And I'm just going to pour it down around the side so it doesn't end up sitting on top of the blades and not coming in contact with the water. A teaspoon of caster sugar, so I'll grab the sugar. So righty, I've got caster sugar. This is just regular white sugar that's been milled in the Thermomix and turned into a finer sugar, which is really, this is, to be used instead of store-bought caster sugar. I find it's, I can't tell the difference in anything I cook. And it's cheaper because caster sugar is dearer per kilo than white sugar is. And now we're going to warm that up for 2 minutes to 37 degrees on speed 1, just to activate the yeast. So next, hang on. Oh, it says 20 grams of grapeseed oil. So I am going to use olive oil. We'll have a look at that. Paired the scales because they were no longer on 0. I always like to check the scales to make sure they're on 0 before I weigh anything. 600 grams of baker's flour. This is going to be a big loaf of bread. The one I make is usually only 500 grams of flour. Okay, 2 teaspoons of sea salt. I had some pink Himalayan salt in a little container, so I've tipped it in there because I may as well use it up. It was just a tiny little bit. 2 teaspoons of bread improver. Now this stuff you just get, I just buy it at the supermarket on the shelf near the bread flour. And I buy this Loafy Wallaby flour, so I get the matching bread improver. And I just find the bread improver just makes the dough a little bit softer, and it keeps a little bit longer. So now we're going to knead that for 6 minutes. I'm just going to stay with my Thermomix now for the next 6 minutes. I'm not going to move away because I'm just waiting for it to do it. It does jump a little bit at times. I've got it on the glide board, which you can buy from the mix shop, and I find that does decrease the amount of bouncing, but it's still, every now and then when it gets a little bit off balance, it gives a really good jump. So I'm just going to stay here this way this knead, but I'll bring you back when we're ready for the next step. Okay, we're nearly done. So I've had a bit of a read ahead of this recipe by looking at the, if you go to your 3 little dots next door to the next thing, and you go to recipe detail, you can actually have a bit of a read ahead. And this one, we're going to let it rise here, and then for an hour and a half, and then once it's risen, it's going to go back in the Thermomix bowl to knead for another 30 seconds. So I have 2 Thermomix bowls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tip this out here, and then I'm going to set this bowl aside. And I won't wash it. I've got a few other things I'm doing today, but so I won't wash this bowl. I'll just set it aside for when we re-knead the dough, and then after that, then I can wash it up, ready to cook the mince for the filling. So I'm going to knead this up into a nice ball. It's actually quite a stiff dough, but it had a long knead, so it's would have really have well-formed gluten by now, and that's warm. So I'm going to put this aside. What's that stuck? Okay, and I'll be back when we're ready to re-knead it and shape it to go in the oven. Rightio. So we're back here with our cob loaf. So I've been doing other cooking with my Thermomix, and I've stepped out of the recipe. Now, as long as you don't go into any other recipe in the guided cooking on Cookidoo, your recipe will stay up here as a bookmark. So if I click on the bookmark, it will take me back to where I was. And it was lightly grease, a ceramic or glass bowl, transfer dough into the oil bowl, blah, 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 which is what we did. And we let it prove. And now we're going to place the proved dough back into our Thermomix. Now I've just left that sitting there. I didn't wash it or anything. Put the lid on, and we're going to knead it for 30 seconds. Now I'm going to shape it into a ball. Okay. See if I can get all of this dough out. Wait a minute. Not bad. Whoops. It's going to stick to that, isn't it? Oh. I'm just going to try and bake it on this. Okay. I'm going to have to put some flour on it. Or a bit of oil. Okay. So I'm not going to put it in a loaf tin. I'm going to, I'm just going to let it rise on this baking paper in this proving bowl. So I'll have to get some, for approximately 3 hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some flour, and I will flour this paper. Because then what I'll do is I'll just pick this paper up, dough and all, and I'll drop it on a baking pan and put it in the oven. So we get a nice crust all the way around. I'll just get some flour. Rightio. And so this means it'll stay in a round shape while it's rising and not just flatten out. Yeah. I'll be back when we're ready to pop it in the oven. Rightio. So that's finished proving. I'm not gonna, what we're gonna do now is pop this in here, and we're gonna insert the probe if I can find it. Here we go. So we're gonna put that there, Thermomix sensor, rightio. So we're going to go, there's the notch. We're going to make sure it's no more than 1 centimetre from the top of the loaf. Like that. It's just a bit under 1 centimetre. And we don't want it to touch the bottom, so I've got it going in at a bit of an angle. Okay? Now we're going to send the settings to the sensor. All set. Next. So we've got to place in a cold oven and bake until sensor indicates that the temperature is reached. So we've got to put this over near the stove as well so it can still talk to it. So I'll just grab my phone wherever I've put it and I'll show you the app. And it is the cooking centre, this little greenhouse. Oh, I've got my finger over the top. Rightio. And it says it is at it says 33 out of 96 degrees centigrade. This is centigrade. 50 minutes. So this will alert me on the phone as well as on the Thermomix. So I'll be back when that's ready to come out of the oven. Sorry. So the sensor is telling me that the bread's ready to remove from the oven. I'll go and grab it and we'll bring it over here. And that's it there. Now we're not going to try and remove that sensor because let me tell you, that is hot. I've tried to pull it out before, so we just go shh. And it says caution, probe is hot. So we do that. Oops. Rightio. Sounds hollow. Rightio, so now I'm going to move on to, I'm going to leave that cool, but I'm also going to move on to, in a couple of hours, I'm going to make the mince for the cob loaf filling. And once we fill the loaf of bread, we'll put the puff pastry on top. But I'll be back when the mince is, when I start the mince. So we were going to make the cob loaf for tea last night, but I just ran out of time, so I decided that the loaf of bread would keep until today and we would do it for tea tonight. So I've just, while the mince was cooking, I thought I'd quickly get in and edit the video and realised that it didn't tape properly, it didn't video properly, so I've lost all the video for the mince. So we're just starting from here, but I just did the mince out of the cottage pie. Now I think recipe, and I'll share it down below, the mince I used. But I think any meat pie filling would do the trick. So all I did was I bagged this up. This was our cob loaf. It turned out so well. It's a huge loaf, and so what we're going to do is we're going to chop the top off. And pull the middle out, and I'll set this aside and I'll toast this up for dipping. But I just want to do, like, I don't know, I'm sure everyone has made a cob loaf at some stage. I was going to put cheese in as well, but I've changed my mind. I don't want to pull out too much, otherwise I'll end up pulling a hole in the thing. So I've got the oven preheating to 180, and I'm going to cook it for 20 minutes. So that'll do. I don't want to take too much out. Otherwise, yeah, we'll end up with a hole. And I'm just going to put it on top of a piece of baking paper. And then this is our mince. It was quite a good one it had. It said to put peas in it. I didn't do that. But it definitely had lots of veggies in it. I put in onion, carrot, garlic. I didn't put, there was, I'm just going to stir this bottom in. There was zucchini. I didn't have any zucchini, so I used the stem of a broccoli, and it had mushrooms. And I didn't have any mushrooms, but I am definitely going to make that cottage pie recipe and add all the right vegetables, because this is, I've already tasted this mince and it is so nice. Okay, just had some brown bits on the bottom that I wanted to scrape off and mix into the mince. Okay. So that was, filled it up quite nicely. So this is a piece of puff pastry. I've just, I use this here to fold it on the 20 centimetre mark, and I'm just going to pull that off. Or I might have to cut it off. We'll just see how it goes. That's going to pull off quite well. I don't mind a bit of a rustic look on things like this. Okay, perfect. Okay. And they just say to, it says to stick it on, but I don't know how you stick it on. Perfect. Maybe I need to, I didn't want to wet it because I don't want to make the bread soggy. Anyway, let's do that. And they say to serve this with tomato sauce. Yeah. So I'll get this, I'll put this in for a while, and then I'll add the bread in as well. On a different tray to get it crunchy. Okay, I'll be back. So this is just a quick look. I've got to put it back in the oven and on a bit of higher heat and try and get that to cook a bit better. But we've got our bread. It's all baked. I don't know how this is going to be. The mince was absolutely delicious. But as I said, you can use, you could be able to use any mince. And this is cooking. Like, it looks really good. But anyway, I'm going to pop this back in the oven. Everyone will be here soon for tea. So I won't taste this on video because it's just not ready. I want to get that a bit more puffed up. But thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, could you please give it a thumbs up, pop over to my channel and subscribe, and I really hope I'll see you next time.